Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz. Happy Monday to you, Michael. How is your show, which you are a host of, The Rational Egoist, going? Any new news to tell?
It's great. I'm just excited. We got Robert Naser in the chat here putting out the words to Bastille Day by Rush. Awesome song. Highly recommend it. Also highly recommend Anthem by Rush, another great song. The podcast, there's nothing new yet. The episode where Andy Bernstein interviewed me is still out. I anticipate Wednesday there will be an episode released, and then Friday will be one. The first will be with Patrick Carroll, who is formerly of the Foundation of Economic Education. He's a young man in the freedom movement. And then what is the next one on the next day? Oh, Megan Ribbons I'll be interviewing about her inductive approach to biology. Really looking forward to that. That should be out by the end of the week. That's going to be great. I've been trying to interview her for like 2 years, and I finally got her to come on, so I'm very pleased about that.
Great. Inductive reasoning does not get enough credit, I have to tell you. At least outside of objectivist circles.
You waited forever to say welcome to the show, and Ian Gilmore said it still started in the middle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're not going to go sick. Don't go sick. You can't go sick because if you wait too long, it's just going to suck. On the replays, it's fine. I think.
Okay, I waited for about 4 or 5 seconds that time, and so I was verging on sick that time. First of all, folks, I have to say before we continue that everything we say and do here does not reflect on the American Capitalist Party's opinions. We are telling and we're revealing a lot about ourselves, not necessarily the American Capitalist Party. But we do, of course, as chair and vice chair, endorse everything the American Capitalist Party stands for, which is the defense and protection of individual rights and an individualist society where you are your own king. You don't need one lording over you. What were you going to say?
You know, I just had a thought. What if on the American Capitalist Party website, they put out a disclaimer that said everything here doesn't necessarily represent the views of Liebowitz and Pellegrino?
What would be crazy about that is so much of the stuff that's on the platform has been written by Pellegrino. So, have you written some stuff on there? You have. I have
not. I have not. Okay. I actually tried. I wrote some stuff, but the reviewer, I guess, did not like what I wrote. You know, I hate writing.
Was the reviewer?
You were not. No, you were not the. How do you not remember that you didn't review?
Well, I remember you writing. I do remember. How do I not remember? Come on, we have to go over this again. How do I not remember?
Well, you weren't the reviewer. I mean, but Alan was the reviewer. You were not. So I don't know. I don't even unless you were the secret reviewer and he was just. That could be. Yes. That could be. But either way, he didn't like it. The bottom line is, I hate writing. I even hate typing. That's why I much prefer this to social media typing debates. Like, no, I can't stand it. I hate it.
You know, you could write the way some people do by dictation and then get somebody else to type out what you dictate.
Okay, we are not all famous, wealthy actors. I can't afford that.
It doesn't have to be. Yes, you can. You can. You get your lovely lady friend to type out for you.
Yeah, she'll love that. I hope she's watching. Diana, you've been volunteered. You've been volunteered.
You better pay her well. And I mean, if you can't do it with currency, do it with love currency, my friend. So we got a lot of stories today, and a lot of stories, as per usual, do not reflect too well on the personality of our esteemed leader and wannabe king, Mr. Trump. I should call him President Trump, after all. I should do honor to the office, even though I don't necessarily honor the person within it. This first story is from Mother Jones. I actually saw this. I either read it first in the Post or I saw it on X, that Trump threatened to revoke the citizenship of Rosie O'Donnell. Now, this is scary. Now, I feel like I'm saying this every day now, Michael. I feel like Trump says something almost on a daily basis that should scare the shit out of not only sane people, but even the insane people in the MAGA movement should be just a little bit frightened about stuff like this, for example, where he's sort of, a lot of people take him with a grain of salt. They say he's kidding on the square, something like that. But he's threatening to revoke this person's citizenship, and his claims are so hyperbolic. I mean, she's a threat to America. Rosie O'Donnell is a threat to America, and therefore should have her citizenship revoked. And she should stay in that lovely place called Ireland where she lives. Now, I've been watching Rosie O'Donnell for years. I've, of course, been a witness to her feud with Donald Trump for a long time. There's nothing about Rosie O'Donnell that is a threat to America. She's not a jihadist, folks. She's somebody who disagrees with the President of the United States and is exercising her First Amendment right to actually criticize the president. You remember, that's what we're allowed to do in free countries. In free countries, we can hold the political class to task. We can even vote them out of office. We can even impeach them. We can remove them. We can criticize them as much as possible, because a free society is a transparent society. That's what a capitalist society would be, at least. What do you think about this crazy stuff he's saying about Rosie O'Donnell?
Well, I hate the oft defense of Trump. Well, he's just kidding. Excuse my French. I don't give a fuck if he's just kidding. This is not something to kid about, right? It's not for the president of the United States to joke about revoking people's citizenship. And if anyone is the threat to the American system of government, it is the current occupant of the White House. He's the guy who wants to deport and imprison people without due process. He's the guy that wants the National Guard on American streets, right? So let's just dial it back a little bit with who's the threat, because it's him. And, I've known this for some time. And by the way, I can't stand Rosie O'Donnell. I've never liked her. But the bottom line is, whether I like her or Trump likes her or anybody else likes her, she's an American citizen, and revoking her citizenship is not something for the commander-in-chief to be joking about.
Yeah, I've never liked her. Apparently, people she employs don't like her. She seems to have a rather acerbic personality, but hey, she's an American, has the right to have an acerbic personality. Although Deeper with Diego does say something that I think is interesting and maybe should be a consideration. The only threat to America Rosie O'Donnell poses was whenever she takes a step, we all experience a level 7 earthquake on the Richter scale that is potentially damaging to many parts of this country.
That is definitely, I can say this with absolute certainty, that is not the opinion of the American Capitalist Party.
That is not the opinion.
That's not the view of the American Capitalist Party.
That is Deeper with Diego's opinion, and that is me reflecting the possibility that, yes, when she does take a step, it does measure on the Richter scale. I don't know if it's a 7. That's awful big, Deeper with Diego. She's not that ginormous, but I'm sure it does register in some way. Anyway, so yeah, look, Trump. What I think the MAGA people have to understand is that, okay, they think he's got this sense of humor. They think he throws outrageous things out there to get better deals or to raise controversy, to get things started. Well, that's not what the president of the United States can and should do. I mean, you and I can possibly joke about things like that, but the president of the United States represents the laws of the land. He represents the executor, the main executor of the laws of the land. That means the Constitution of the United States. That means the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment. He can't be saying stuff like that, because we take it as we should, as somebody who is reckless, lawless, and inconsiderate of the very thing he's pledged upon Inauguration Day to protect, which is the Constitution of the United States of America. So it's troubling. Yes, you got your copy. I got my copy over there somewhere. And I've got some great literature over there, including Joseph Story's great work on the Constitution, which I should probably reread. I think everybody should read the Constitution and as much that has been written about the Constitution as possible, if you want to be an informed American, that is, and if you want to be a member of the American Capitalist Party. And if you do want to be a member of the American Capitalist Party, please go americancapitalistparty.org. Donate, join, be the change, become a member, and also remember to like and subscribe to this station. Also share it from YouTube to other platforms so that the algorithm likes us and so that more people can get this message, right? We need to start letting the world know that rational egoism is actually the most benevolent ethical system there is, and capitalism is also the most benevolent and generous economic system there is. But you haven't read Michael's book even once. Kat, why are you reminding me of this? Now I could see the self-righteous look on Michael's face right now. This is true. I haven't read your book. I haven't read your book yet. It's in my queue.
I'm so sick of this queue. Like this queue has become the stuff of legends, right? Mark Pellegrino's famous queue.
Want me to show you my queue?
I hope that's not prison slang of some sort.
You would know better than I about that. I don't know. Did I accidentally stumble into a prison slang?
I don't know. This is something I used to say when people would say stuff. I say, I hope that's not prison lingo.
That's
yes.
Fine.
Drop the queue, Persephone says.
No, Persephone, stop. I love your name, so don't make me go there. I have a queue over there of 30 books sitting on a shelf. Over here, now I have William and Ariel Durant's entire history of the world, which starts in Samaria and I think ends in sometime after World War II. That's 20,000 pages of material that I have to get to. And then I've got an additional 17 books over there. I've got some massive books over here as well. That I have to get to, the history of freedom and yada, 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 yada. And I'm in the middle of 4 books at the moment. Okay. And they're very good. And at somewhere in between there, Michael, I'll let your book jump the queue and get in there somewhere. Okay. What does it say? What is it? Pull Mike's book from the queue and put it on top. This is not prison lingo. Teresa, come on. Is this the pocket Buddha? You're corrupting the pocket Buddha. Okay, I want to say something real quick. This is something you sent to me from the Free Press that I think demonstrates something that Ayn Rand felt about the American people. As condescending as the political class is to the American people, and as bad a reputation I think as we have abroad for being rather dunderheaded, I think we are far more wise than everyone gives us credit for. The American people seem to be ahead of the curve on immigration, believe it or not. Now, there's a segment of the MAGA community that is back in the dark ages, the mouth breathers. I'm sorry to say that. I know I shouldn't. That is not the American Capitalist Party's opinion. That is Mark Pellegrino's opinion, that they are mouth breathers. But the majority of Americans are now reaching a point, I think, after seeing these mass arrests, after seeing the violence that's being perpetrated in Los Angeles and in other cities, and after seeing normal otherwise law-abiding citizens being carted off, families being separated, and also new prison facilities being toured by the president as if this is something that Americans actually do. When President Trump toured the alligator Alcatraz, I thought, well, this is the end of the republic as we know it, because a president proudly touring a new detention facility for human beings is not the stuff that republics are made of. And it seems like the American public is realizing this, because 79% of Americans are now viewing immigration as a good thing. Now, MAGA had dominated this discourse for a long time by presenting fake news, that immigrants were almost universally bad, that they were all let out of the psychiatric hospitals and prisons of Venezuela and the Central and South America and Mexico, and hoarded across the United States to commit crimes. And of course, in the Post and other journals, and particularly in the conservative press, they highlighted violence committed by a few crazy immigrants, when the overwhelming majority of immigrants, in fact, more immigrants, including illegal immigrants, are law-abiding than citizens themselves. They commit less crimes than American citizens themselves, and 79% of the American population is starting to realize that. And I think it's because of their witnessing this brutality, and it's difficult for them to see this brutality and compare it to the ideals of what the American Republic is supposed to represent, and find that they are in any way compatible. Apparently, let's see, a notable jump along Republicans, 39% to 64%. So even in Republican circles who are supposed to be supporting the MAGA agenda of mass deportations has jumped to supporting immigration, which I think is a wise move. Do you think this is a move in a good direction, Michael? Because I do.
It could be fickle. So the Ayn Rand fan club said, did anyone really say almost all immigrants were bad? Well, context. They have said that anybody that came into this country illegal is a criminal and needs to be shipped out of the country. They have highlighted over and over again, while saying they're all criminals when referring basically to the illegal act of crossing the border, what they're highlighting is the most extreme cases where people who were illegals were doing bad things. They committed heinous crimes. They also focus on some of these folks who get welfare benefits. What they totally ignore is that they have lower crime rates than natural born Americans, and that they actually get less welfare than natural born citizens, and they pay more into the system than what they take out. The emphasis on them taking American jobs drops the context that in the long term, they actually help to create more jobs, drive the economy. So while the statement, they're saying almost all immigrants are bad, that might not actually have come out of anybody's mouth. The narrative that's being promoted is that we need to restrict immigration and that we need to deport anybody who came here illegally or overstayed a visa or says things that the administration doesn't like.
Yeah, I beg to differ. I think that Trump implied many, many, many times, and people that represented Trump implied multiple times that he would imply almost exclusively the people coming over the border were bad people, either psychopaths or criminals.
They're bringing crime, they're bringing drugs, they're rapists.
And that's a generalization. That's a generalization that implies most of these guys are bad. In fact, they tried to use emergency powers and an act from the late 1700s to justify deporting some of these people as agents of the Venezuelan government.
Yeah.
And they were sweeping up in this, not just the Tren de Aragua gang members, but regular everyday people who were working normal jobs. And now they're finding, of course, that a majority of the people being swept up in these immigration sweeps now, because they want to deport somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million a year. These people are law-abiding citizens, otherwise law-abiding citizens who are just living their lives, and frankly, should not be deported for reasons that we're going to be discussing soon. Stealing pets and eating them. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember when Trump said they're eating our pets and dogs?
Okay, so now let me show you the bait and switch. And this is what happens when you engage the MAGA folks, right? So the Ayn Rand fan club says there are people who want reasonable border controls while being for some legal immigration. Yes, there's also people who are willing to wash my car for $20, but they're not relevant to the current discussion. The current discussion has to do with the narrative that has been promoted by the president of the United States, who has claimed that they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some are good people. The president of the United States, who claimed that Haitians were eating the pets in a debate. J.D. Vance, who has promoted similar things. Stephen Miller, who's promoted similar things. The Trumposphere, who has claimed that every one of them is a criminal because they crossed the border. So to say, well, some people want reasonable immigration laws. Yeah, I want reasonable immigration laws. That's not the context in which we're speaking.
Well, let's talk about the American Capitalist Party wants reasonable immigration laws as well. And the reasonable immigration laws are: don't allow felons, criminals into the country, and don't allow people with communicable diseases into the country. But anybody else who is a law-abiding and otherwise peaceful person has a right to move from a worse place to a better place. They have a right to seek work, to seek values. They don't have a right to live off of anybody else, to parasitize the economy, to become a part of the social welfare state. But of course, no American does either. So the fact that these people are moving from one place to another is an expression of the individual rights of a person to make their life better, to pursue values that make their lives better. And so the American Capitalist Party would have sane, rational immigration laws, also understanding that immigrants bring a great deal to this country, not just in the form of innovations that so many of them have brought to the country, not just in the form of tax revenues that they bring into the country, not just in the form of a better cost of labor and a higher standard of living for everybody that they bring to the country, but so much more. And this has to be recognized as part of the context, quite aside from the fact that the principle of individual rights requires us to allow peaceful people to move from one place to another. Just like Michael can move from Connecticut to California if he so chooses. So a Mexican national should be able to move from Mexico to California or to any state he so chooses, provided he's a peaceful person who works for a living. He is doing no harm to anyone. You agree with that, Michael? I'm saying
I agree
this is official stance of the American Capitalist Party. If you agree with that, please visit AmericanCapitalistParty.org and donate and join, because we need sane immigration policy here. We need an immigration policy that's consistent with individual rights. And in this respect, look, I hate to say it, I'm on the side of a lot of the Democrats who are out there actually, some of them, insanely demonstrating something that needs to be shown to the rest of the country, that this is illegal, unconstitutional, and cruel. It's actually cruel. And this is not what the American republic is supposed to be about. And we want to keep the American republic honest. So that's why we are here talking shit the way we talk. Now,
so Ian said, let me just say, Ian Gilmore said that I should say Scott instead of saying Ayn Rand fan club. The problem is that not everybody in the chat knows that it's Scott. So if I say Scott, they're not going to know who it is that I'm referencing.
Is that Scott?
That's Scott Schiff.
Why did Scott
he uses both, but and then you've got the classic Scott and William Swig, even Yaron. Yeah, I hate to tell you this, Scott, but Yaron Brook is not the end all and be all of my life. So what
about Yaron? What about Yaron?
Well, he said that the pictures at the border or something, or the situation at the border was a crisis. I don't know. I just don't know what relevance it has. What Yaron says. If you ever have the opportunity to watch the Ayn Rand fan club or to follow them or anything, there is this weird obsession with Yaron Brook, to the point that when I debated William Swig about the moral character of Donald Trump, William Swig said, well, what about the character of Yaron Brook? And I'm like, what the hell does that have
to do with anything?
Nothing. Nothing. It has nothing to do with anything.
And how are they even comparable? I just have to know.
They're not. Ian Gilmore, I agree. You don't like him being associated with Ayn Rand. That's certainly understandable. I get it. But the fact that he's not the self-appointed head of the movement, Scott. Stop. He's not the head of a movement. But anyways, so yes, there was a crisis at the border. Why does that happen? It happens because of the immigration laws. It happens because of the difficulty of people getting into the country. It happens because there's a stopping of free movement. So these people tend to end up grouping at places like the border. Why are they being smuggled into the country by cartels? Because it's illegal for them to get here, so they pay mules to get them into the country. Why are some of them, they bring drugs? Because of the war on drugs. The problem is the stupid, unjust laws that we have. You don't fix that by making more stupid and unjust laws.
So in other words, Michael, this is sort of a prohibition argument extended to immigration. What they did was they enacted prohibition on something for which there is a clear market and a clear desire for, which is from people to move from a bad place to a better place. And what happens? It introduces violence and incentivizes criminality and systematizes it. This is why we are against prohibition across the board, and why we are a party of pro-choice all the way across the board. Folks, you don't own America. You can certainly say who you want on your property. You can certainly say, I don't want to hire an immigrant in my business, an illegal immigrant. You can certainly do all that because that is your choice. But you don't own America, and you can't prevent a Mexican national from coming over here if he is a peaceful individual who simply wants to work. In fact, you will be the indirect beneficiary of this person's work ethic, whether you know it or not. We're going to talk a little bit about this in just a couple of seconds, because I think they figured out that the cost of deporting each and every individual was somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 or $16,000, right? And that's why it's a ton of money, and this is why they started support. This is why they tried to get this self-deportation app rolling, where they would allow people to take $1,000, deport themselves back to whatever country they came from, and then, you know, try to enter through legal means, because they're trying to save a little bit of money. But Trump has a massive goal of deporting 11 million human beings. Now, what Trump doesn't seem to understand in the expression of this goal is it seems to bleed over into his lack of understanding of what it would take to bring manufacturing, quote unquote, back to America, which is this requires a massive building of infrastructure with respect to the manufacturing in America that would take at least 10 years to bring back. So these jobs are sort of abstractions because we don't have the infrastructure to actually handle them. Likewise, deporting 11 million human beings would require a massive building of infrastructure, including 200 new detention centers. This is according to the Daily Economist. 200 detention centers annually for over a decade at a cost of more than $66 billion each year to deport these folks. Now, this is excluding legal, transportation, and enforcement costs, right? And meanwhile, immigration courts are already overwhelmed with a backlog of 3.6 million cases. So resolving this would require either tripling the number of immigration judges or bypassing due process, which the administration has already tried to do, and they've been caught with their pants down and have had to reverse themselves. Luckily, thank you, separation of powers. Thank you, judicial system, for keeping King President in his place. But imagine the cost of that, Michael, when we're talking about tripling the personnel involved in not only capturing these people, but going through the judicial process of attempting to give these people due process. And in addition to putting in 200 new additional detention centers. This is absolute insanity. I mean, who would have suspected that a representative republic would start to be known for the number of detention centers it has, and that the president and the Secretary of Homeland Security would actually be touring these facilities as if they're great, and they would be shown off by the governor of a state as if it's fantastic. I also wanted to say something about this alligator Alcatraz. They say, you know, some of the Democrats who went to visit it said it was terrible. The conditions were terrible. Their cages. I mean, when I saw even the cleaned up versions of it on Fox News, it looked horrible. There's no place that I would certainly want to stay even temporarily. But they said it's safe. It's safe. It can stand a level 2 hurricane. Now, this is during a time when they are actually predicting a higher level of hurricanes during the hurricane season this year, and a higher strength of hurricanes this year. And this reminds me of something that happened back in 1935. Do you remember the Bonus Army at all? Michael, did you ever hear of the Bonus Army?
The Bonus Army? No.
Yeah.
What is that?
So they were a group of World War I veterans that were petitioning the government to give them their
bonuses. Yeah. They ended up with MacArthur chasing them out of D.C. Is that who you're talking about?
MacArthur, Eisenhower, Patton chasing them out of D.C. Yeah. A few people were killed. It was a terrible thing because 45,000 of them camped basically across from the government. And this was an eyesore. Hoover wanted to get rid of it, so he sent the troops after them, something that Trump would probably do himself. But a tragedy happened later on, because a lot of these men were destitute because these funds never came through. And so a lot of them were a bit of a political eyesore to the new administration, the Roosevelt administration. They didn't want this eyesore anymore, so they incorporated some of these folks into the Works Project administration. They sent about 1,000 or so of these folks down to Key West, right, to do some kind of roads production work. But they had facilities that were somewhat along the lines of the facility you see at Alligator Alcatraz. And what happened? Well, a Category 5 hurricane happened, and there were no evacuation plans for the poor men that were left on this key in these poor shelters, and hundreds of them died. Some of them they were able to evacuate them out by train at some point later on, but hundreds of them died. And I think about in a state that does have Category 4 and Category 5 storms, not every once in a while, but enough to be scary. Setting up a detention center surrounded by the Everglades, surrounded by alligators and reticulated pythons and all the other scary things that live in the other Everglades, with the capacity to only withstand a Category 2 storm. It seems like we're waiting for a disaster to happen. I mean, this is just insanity, and to me it lends itself more to this craziness, this crazy immigration policy on the part of the MAGA movement. What say you?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're talking about building 5 more of these things. The whole idea of putting human beings in a situation where they're surrounded by alligators, it all to me is just this idea that Trump wants to be seen as this tough guy. And, you said something that as, a constitutional republic known for its detention centers, but the fact of the matter is the United States incarcerates more people than any other country on earth. We've got a lot of unjust laws that put people in prison for drug offenses, things of that nature, prostitution, whatever, gambling. And this is just more of that. That is not indicative of a free country. I think it was it de Tocqueville or Dostoevsky? One of them said something to the effect of, you can judge a civilization by the way it treats its prisoners. And this reminds me of that. Like, you want to look tough, so you're putting people in this facility surrounded by alligators. These people aren't even criminals. They I guess technically they broke immigration laws. This is just not good. The word optics comes to mind. It doesn't look good. It's not the type of place that I want to be representing me. It's not the type of place that is indicative of a free society.
You know why it doesn't look good, Michael?
Because it's not good.
Exactly.
Stole your thunder there, didn't I? Stole your thunder a little bit.
No, you did exactly what I wanted you to do. And I'm glad you took down Lee's comment there, because she claimed that I was speaking about 1935 as if I was there. I am so old.
As if I were there, Mark. It's the subjunctive if. It's as if I were there, not as if I was there.
Thank you for correcting my English, the man who doesn't like to write. So, look, Lee, I was not there in 1935. There was a full 30 years before I was even a drop in the bucket. My mother wasn't even there in 1935. She was born in 1942. So I just want you to know, I may be old, but I'm not that old. And look, I have a saturation point with this old stuff. There's only so much this sensitive human being can take before he cracks. So you'll know the tipping point. You'll know it when it happens. You're gonna
go sick.
I'm gonna go sick. I'm gonna go postal, baby.
Yeah, it's funny. I told you, Mark. Diana actually said to me, you have to be careful. You break Mark's balls a lot, and he might not like it.
Let me just say something. Now, this isn't physically true, but it's metaphorically true. My balls are unbreakable. Okay, so not physically true, just metaphorically true. So
turn into the capitalist corner, folks, where we will have a frequent discussion of Mark Pellegrino's balls. Great.
No, we didn't talk about that. We didn't say that directly. Look, we get a little bit fun. We're having fun on the show, right? Capitalists have fun, unlike socialists. I'm just saying, we have fun.
No, they're not fun people at all. They're miserable people. Can we talk a little about Bastille Day? That's the first article I sent you, and you haven't gotten to that yet. I think it's important.
But I want to continue. Wait, I want to continue with this. I want to read straight from this article because I want people to know the benefits that they receive indirectly from immigrants who are here. Because I think one thing the MAGA movement did was expose a xenophobic element of our country, a racist element of our country, who thinks that these folks who are coming over from somewhere else are taking jobs away from American citizens that they would otherwise do themselves, which they are not. And they also try to use this a sort of Marxist excuse now. You hear the Laura Ingrams and the Tucker Carlson saying that, that now you just want an underclass of folks that you can exploit, an indentured servitude of people that you can exploit now. Greg Lewis says, is Mark going to start banning those that offend him, like certain other temporary occupant of the presidential office? No, I actually like most people who offend me. Look at my partner over here. Yes, and I said partner. He offends me all the time, and yet I don't ban him. I invite him wherever I go, as a matter of fact.
It's true. He does. It's very true.
Okay, so look, I just want to read straight from this article a little bit about what these immigrants contribute to the economy. This isn't just a story of courts and budgets. It's a story of people, millions of whom are helping to power the U.S. economy. That's right. They are helping to power the U.S. economy. Over 8.3 million undocumented immigrants were part of the U.S. workforce in 2022, concentrated in agriculture, construction, hospitality, and elder care. Now, these are pretty significant areas that I think represent a national interest. To keep these areas alive and prosperous, to keep food, to keep housing, to keep hospitality and elder care accessible to everybody, we sort of want to keep these people employed. And they're not taking positions from American citizens. They're filling positions that otherwise would not be fulfilled. So removing undocumented workers wouldn't boost wages or open jobs for the native-borns. It would likely harm them, because undocumented immigrants and native-born workers often hold complementary roles. Now, this is important. Complementary roles, not competing roles with each other. When 400,000 were deported, now this is a little known fact, under Obama-era Secure Communities program, it led to 44,000 native-born job losses and lower wages. Do you understand that, folks? Free economies like this, where people are allowed to move freely between countries, where borders are they're not porous, but they're just spaces that designate, different governments, different types of rules. These places are prosperous, and when you start deporting these people, it actually has a deleterious effect on the native-born population. It's the unseen aspect of this, as Bastille would talk about, that people, since people are only seeing the deportations, they're not seeing the unseen economic effects of this, that is enabling this process to go forward. Luckily for us, Trump has a little bit of pragmatism in this, and of course that's not a good word for objectivists, but he's starting to try to exempt some of these immigrants from this onerous immigration policy that his administration has, because he understands that, I think I'm committing suicide by doing this, and maybe I shouldn't do that. So he's got enough, I think, narcissistic self-preservation to start changing policies, one hopes. So you sent me an article on
hold on, but here's a question here. Mark and Mike, do you know what Yaoi is? YAOI? I haven't got the slightest idea what that is. So no, I don't know. I don't know if Mark knows, but
no. But did you open your lollipop, Lee? That's what I want to know. Now, okay. Oh, you're talking about the French Revolution article you sent me. I didn't read it.
Well, that's what I just said. The French Revolution article that I sent you. I'm happy you cracked. That's a good code. You cracked it. I don't know how.
Did you say French Revolution?
Yeah, I said you didn't read the article on the French Revolution I sent. And then you said, you're talking about the French Revolution. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But you didn't, I guess you didn't read it.
I didn't read it. So
can you just give Bastille Day a shout out, right? The French Revolution, for all its problems, it is indicative in some respects, especially early on, of Enlightenment values. There were Americans that were deeply involved in the philosophical change. Thomas Paine, although Thomas Paine is technically English, but he was adopted American. Thomas Jefferson was involved. Lafayette, who was big in the French Revolution, they ended up going too socialist because the ideas of Rousseau came to predominate. but nonetheless, the early on they did have some good ideas, and there was a woefully unequal society, unequal in the sense that it was enforced by the government. It was government forced inequality. It wasn't a natural aristocracy. It was just a tradition in government oppressing people. So, and especially storming the Bastille, the ancient symbol of oppression, I think is worth commemorating. I commemorate it every single year. And Robert Nasser, of course, gave us some of the lyrics to the song "Bastille Day" by Rush. What did they say? Bow their heads before they die, as we would bow as they rolled by. Is I think one of the lyrics. That is, that's classic stuff. So, yeah, Bastille Day is a great thing. That's all I want to say.
Some of the best Americans I know are Canadian, folks. Akira Felix said, "You heard it, guys. You heard it here. Mark hasn't read about the French Revolution." No, Akira, I didn't read this article about the French Revolution, but I have read a number of books about the French Revolution. They are not in my queue anymore. They're in my bookshelf, unlike Michael's book, which is still in my queue. So thank you for giving a shout out to Bastille Day. It was a symbol of a deep oppression, and it was torn down brick by brick by brick. And now all that stands there, if you go, is a nice column commemorating the space where the Bastille once stood. And also there is a fantastic market there, a farmer's market called Bastille Market. You should go there on the weekends in the summertime. It's actually fantastic. They have music there and open stalls of fresh produce and great food from all over the world. It's a fantastic place to visit. And also,
where is this? Where is this?
Paris. Don't fuck
awesome.
with me.
Yes. So for those in the chat, sure, just frolic on over to Paris and then mosey on down to the Bastille Market. Sounds great. I'll take it into consideration next weekend.
I think in the metro at the Bastille, there is actually a part of the wall, the original wall that and foundation of the Bastille that's still there, and they have it sort of not roped off, but they have a metal thing around it, so you can actually see what the Bastille actually sort of looked like, even though they have paintings of it and stuff. That you can actually touch the physical foundation that was once the Bastille, if you should so choose to do that. You can also walk by and do a walking tour of the founders in America, in Paris, and you could go by the place where Thomas Paine was actually imprisoned for a time for being a patriot, for being an American patriot, for being a Republican, where he just escaped being beheaded, by the way, by a stroke of luck, and was able to make it back home, but by no effort on the American government's part.
Have you ever read his letter to George Washington?
Yes, I have.
Oh my goodness!
The poor guy. I mean, and dying in almost anonymity. I mean, from what I remember, he was buried in an anonymous grave in upstate New York, outside of a farm that he was living in. Really died in a manner that was not becoming of one of the greatest patriots of all time. I mean, if not for his pamphlets, as the Continentals were rushing out of New York for their lives and heading into New Jersey and getting out of there before the British Army completely destroyed them. If it had not been for his Thomas Paine's pamphlets, there might not have been the will on the part of the American people to continue the American Revolution. He single-handedly, as probably the biggest selling author of his time, changed the morale of the American Revolution and turned it around. I think it was because of him that Washington was able to rally the troops and do some fantastic work over there in New Jersey on Christmas Day. Folks, if you think the American Capitalist Party likes Alligator Alcatraz, you're grossly mistaken, of course. That is not the American Capitalist Party way. But 5 other states are planning on doing something similar. They're planning on building detention centers. And as we read from the Daily Economist, there have to be over 200 detention centers built if they're going to be able to handle the influx of 11 million people, over the period of time that they're going to have to deport these folks. Now, of course, this is being touted by the Epoch Times. Actually, I don't know. Do you think it was being touted as a sort of win on the part of the Department of Homeland Security, or was it a neutral article to you? I mean, they're a fairly conservative newspaper, but this is not something to be proud of from my
No, I don't know. I didn't really get the sense that they were bragging. It certainly wasn't condemnatory. I mean, it was
just printed as news.
Yeah, just regular stuff. Gary Menard says the key to the Bastille is on the front porch of George Washington's Mount Vernon, sent by Lafayette. You know what, Gary? That's great. I'll have to save up my money.
Is it really?
so that I can travel down to Virginia and see that one of these days. I'm Vernon. Of course you have. But I'm recouping right now my finances, Gary, from when I met you in Boston. That took quite a bit of saving. So I'm going to save some more, and maybe I'll head down to Vernon as well. We can't all just frolic to Paris, then back to Virginia. I get it. I'm with you, Gary, on this.
Well, I don't remember seeing the Key to the Bastille, but I'm sure I must have, because I took the whole tour there. And if you guys haven't been to Mount Vernon, you have to go. It's amazing. Visiting any of the founders' homes is amazing. I've been to Montpelier, I've been to Monticello a couple of times, and I've been to Mount Vernon. And I recommend you all go. Of course, when I went to Montpelier, they were rebuilding the entire interior of Madison's house. So it was just sort of gutted. It looked like I was walking through a house in the middle of construction. But that now is finished. It's completely redone.
Did you, by any chance, think of buying Monticello, Mark?
I never thought of buying Monticello. It's owned by the Thomas Jefferson Association. There's no way I could buy it from them.
I think they
Although
might.
it was privately, it was privately owned for a while. And I want to say something to all the anti-Semites out there. One of the guys who preserved Monticello was a Jewish man who purchased that property before it was handed over to the Thomas Jefferson Association that now takes care of it. So that property would have been probably demolished years and years and years ago, if not for a Jew. Thank you very much. The Jews are saving the world as we speak.
You're welcome.
They saved Monticello. Yes, you are. Well, okay. Thank you. Yes, I'm thanking you. But I want to before we head off, there's a couple of articles here. There's one about the Epstein Files, which I don't really give a shit about. Do you give a shit about this Epstein stuff?
Yes. Not because I give a shit about the Epstein, not because I give a shit about the Epstein stuff, because I give a shit about the thought processes and the stuff that's going on around it. I ultimately don't know what occurred. I don't think many people do. Everybody, though, not everybody, but a lot of people are fairly certain. But I think that what happened here is, and this is, speculation, but it's speculation based on, my understanding of human beings, politicians, and grifters in general. I think that the MAGA folks, milked this Epstein thing for everything they could. And by MAGA folks, I mean the influencers, the politicians. And I think they sold the bill of goods. I don't think there was ever a client list. I don't think there's a there. That doesn't mean I think Epstein certainly was a sexual predator. I think Ghislaine Maxwell was as well. I think it's likely that there were numerous friends of Epstein who got in on the action. I just don't think it's a scandal that's going to bring down Washington, D.C. and Hollywood. I certainly don't think that Epstein is a member of the Mossad and came up with this list to blackmail people. And I think that the Kash Patels, Pam Bondis, Dan Bonginos of the world have been selling this for a long time. And it reminds me when I was 15 years old and I got into a car accident and I had a lawsuit. And I got the $3,000 almost immediately from the lawsuit, and I went out and blew it. And my grandmother said to me, what happened to the money? And I said, I can't get it till I'm 18. Now, when I was 15, 18 seemed forever away. Lo and behold, when I turned 18, my grandmother asked me, hey, what happened to that money? And now I had no answer. And I think this is a similar thing. They kept promising that they would, get to the bottom of this, never expecting the day to actually come when they would have to put up and shut up. And now they've shut up. Unfortunately, the people that they've been lying to for so long, and again, this is speculation. I'm not stating this as something I absolutely know. It's just what I think. I think that the people that they've been lying to want them to pay, and they can't do it. That's what I believe.
I think Dan Bongino is one of those people that they lied to, and he wants them to pay, and that's why he was threatening to quit, because he drank the Kool-Aid, and now he's discovering that now he thinks there's something fishy going on. I agree with you. I think that's the simplest solution to this, is that they were using this as political fodder. They were to try to undermine the deep state and to try to work on. They're throwing red meat out to their constituents who understand there is actually such a thing as a deep state and want to undermine it in whatever way possible. But there was really no there. And of course, now that you're walking this back, it's going to make people even more suspicious. And the article itself is about 3 possible solutions to this, all of which will cost the taxpayers tons of money to discover basically nothing new that will just confirm what we already know. But after 60 or 70 million taxpayer dollars have been spent on this, so.
Do you remember Al Capone's vault, Mark, by any chance?
Yes, I do, of course, because what's his name? Geraldo Rivera tried to make his career off of it, and it was a complete and total public bust. And why that didn't send that guy down to journalistic hell, I don't know. I don't know how, but he became even more popular after that.
But that's what this reminds me of. I remember the commercials for weeks and weeks. They're going to go into Al Capone's vault. Who knows what they're going to find?
I was there.
Money, bodies, whoever. But what they found was, I think they found like one empty bottle of gin or something.
Yeah, whiskey bottle. Yeah. And they were like, well, we found one whiskey bottle. We found a whiskey bottle, and they kept ginning it up as if, now we're on the verge of discovering more. Nope.
And that's what this reminds me of. But anyways, I really hope you're going to get to the social comparison article.
Yes, that's what I want to get to, actually. But I'm wondering why people are saying this is a roller coaster chat, and why Minha is saying, "What a wild chat! Another reality. What is that?
Because they often in the chat. Where are you? How far behind are you on the chat?
I'm not paying attention to the chat because I'm either because I'm either talking or listening to you, and see that's the difference.
Or you forgot the other option. What about the daydreaming you're doing about all your frolics to Paris and Ireland? No, because you have the real thing. No, that's true. You have the real thing. I forget. Yes. You don't have to. It's for people like me, the lower classes, that we have to do this. But this article on social comparison, I thought was great. So that's why
it's a great article. It's a great article. You can start talking about it, and I'll fill in too, because I love this article, and it's a great article to end on. So go ahead.
Well, the reason I think that this is important and why I sent it to you, because I firmly believe in a capitalist character, right? The type of people that embrace capitalism are people that are good on self-esteem, that want to excel, that don't judge themselves by comparing themselves to other, but by their own efficacy and reality on what they're able to accomplish. And they actually encourage the success of others, but don't envy it. But there is a tendency amongst a lot of people to compare themselves to others. So instead of saying, wow, I wonder how good that, for instance, we had a good show today, Mark. I liked it. And then if you turn around and say, well, I don't know, Joe Rogan, he's got this huge show, but that's not the way to do it. You don't compare yourself to others. You compare yourself to how well you're doing. You judge yourself by that. Now, is there ever a time, obviously, if you're playing basketball and you want to judge how well you're doing, you have to look to the other team, but you don't judge inherently who you are by comparisons to others. And that's a real problem, because there's always going to be somebody, or usually somebody better, somebody taller, faster, smarter, whatever. And as humans, no matter how successful we get, a lot of us tend to still look to the next level, to people that are doing better, and compare ourselves that way. And that's just devastating for an already shaky self-esteem. And it's not good for capitalism, because when you are in a capitalist society and you think that way and you behave that way, you end up wanting to see the people who are achieving suffer. Instead of bringing yourself up, you want to bring them down.
And I think this is a culture we live in now, a culture of envy that wants to bring down what's good instead of raising themselves up. I think you should post that article from Psychology Today on Twitter as soon as possible.
Right now.
It's something. This is something that I talk to actors about all the time, because they see people who are better than them in class, or they see people who are not as good as them in class outpace them in the professional world, and they start to feel bad by comparison. Like, what am I doing wrong? This is terrible. I must be awful in some way. What I try to ingrain in them from the very beginning is that their lives are their own. Their obstacles are their own. Their mission in life is their own. The status that it's important, more importantly than the status they reach in the world, is the status they achieve within themselves. I have to realize that my jiu-jitsu is not going to look like some 25-year-old dude who's been doing jiu-jitsu since he was 5 on YouTube. You know, if I measure myself according to that, I'm never going to be happy with who and what I am. But I know that my jiu-jitsu will be Mark's jiu-jitsu, and it's going to be fine just as it is. It doesn't have to win world championships. All it has to do is protect me from bad guys, which is what I like. I want to say something about Kat Sterling's comment. She's thankful for my frolicking, by the way, because I will be frolicking to Boston next month, and she's happy about that. And Nasir says something that I think was really good. Where is it?
It's Nasir. That's where I get this Nasir from. It's from you.
Shut up. Okay, I'm saying it the way I want to say it. I'm judging by my own standard, not yours.
All right, Pellegrino. Okay, Pellegrino. We'll just pronounce everybody's name.
Do you know that I say this on cameos? When I'm playing Lucifer on a cameo, I say, hey, it's Lucifer in my favorite meat suit, Mark Pellegrino. Be sure to call him Mark Pellegrino if you see him at a conference, because I'm hoping. I want to see how many people actually do that to try to get under my skin, because I say it gets under Mark's skin. I'm talking about myself in the third person.
Oh, okay. Well, I will be there in Boston, by the way. So now that people know I'm going to be there, maybe a lot more people will show up.
This is probably true. This is no shit. This is probably true. So Robert, excuse me for mispronouncing your name every time I say it, so I'm just going to say Robert. He hopes he doesn't see a second French Revolution here. And that is sincerely my fear here.
He said that about an hour ago. What is happening?
I'm seeing it now, so I'm talking about it now. And you didn't say anything about it an hour ago, so I'm saying something about it now publicly, because I think our culture is more Rousseauian than Lockean right now, and I feel our culture is more irrational than rational. So it's highly possible that we could have a revolution that would begin the type of bloodbath and radical democratization that we saw under the French National Assembly and under the Jacobins. It's very possible, because radical forces like Islamicists, jihadists, communists, socialists, Antifa folks are all combining together to take advantage of the moral chaos that Americans are experiencing now. But we folks, as participants of the American Capitalist Party, are trying to make the moral landscape clearer for you, so that you won't fall victim to some of these folks who are trying to capitalize on the moral chaos. We want you to be morally clear so they have no ammunition to demoralize you in the revolution that they want to come. Now, Michael, is it your turn to do the...
No way, man. Stop putting it off on me. No, it's my turn, Mark.
I knew it. See, I knew it. You're screwing with my senility.
I think that I'm screwing with your sanity would be the best way
my
to put
senility.
It. Yeah. Well, whatever floats your boat. So what the hell was I going to say now? I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Somebody just mentioned that our subscriptions have froze, and perhaps we need to make thumbnails for the clips. Yeah, that's what I need, is more to do in my life. But a good idea. there's just two of us. Although I did give Mark the names of some people who volunteered to help. Whether or not Mark actually reached out, I don't know. Okay. Did you?
No comment.
Oh no. All right. Well, I reminded you again. That's good. So in one fell swoop, I let Akira Felix know I'm trying, and I let the two other people that reached out to me know that I did my part. But the capitalist thought of the day. I'm going to tell you a quick story that I posted about today on social media. I chipped my front tooth. By the way, my girlfriend Diana wants me to get it fixed. I say, no way in hell I'm getting that fixed. That's now like a part of me. It's a signature part of me. But anyway, the way that I chipped my front tooth was I was on the top bunk in prison, and I wanted to jump down to the floor, but I didn't want to get my feet dirty. And my sneakers were in front of the bunk, between the bunk and the door. So I jumped and tried to land on my sneakers so that they wouldn't get dirty and I would just put them in. Instead, I bounced on the sneakers, fell face first onto the pavement. My face hit the pavement so hard, my neighbor said that his stomach got sick. I thought I was going to get up and be a bloody mess. But actually, I jumped up. I spit out the broken piece of tooth. I went to the mirror. I looked in the mirror. I saw there was no further damage, luckily. The reason that I jumped right up is because I know from a lot of experience that the longer you stay down, the harder it is to get up. And it's the same thing with life, right? And it's the same thing with capitalism. You may fail, and you may fail over and over again. And the road, it may be a hard one, and your subscriptions might freeze, but you keep going, you keep pressing forward, you build that self-esteem, you build that character, and eventually you succeed. And what I mean by succeed is you succeed because you are a better human being. You have strong character, and you know you can accomplish things. And that's true whether or not Mark and I, for instance, grow this show to 1 million followers. To me, the show is already a success because it's making a difference in my life. And I hope that it's making a difference. And I think it's making a difference in the lives of others. So in capitalism, we need to keep going forward, keep pressing forward. And in line with the article that Mark referenced, don't compare ourselves to others. Judge ourselves by our own progress, our own character, our own rationality. And with that, turn it over to Mark, who's not quite as old as I make him sound.
I love that. I think those are great, inspiring words. And I think we should probably do something like that every day to leave our audience feeling confident and inspired to face their day. In today's day and age, even though we live in the best time in civilization that it is to live in, it feels like there's a lot of chaos out there and that we're not in control of our own destinies, but we are to a great degree. And we at the American Capitalist Party want you to feel like you are in control of your destiny as much as you can possibly be. And we want to empower you, or at least expose you to the fact that you can self-empower, that you have it within you to do everything that you need to do. Okay, folks, well, that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure to like and subscribe before you leave. Make sure that you share this from YouTube to other platforms. Make sure you tell your friends about this, because we want this positive, life-affirming, pro-choice message to go across the world. We need it to go viral. This is the time we're at a crossroads where people do not like what they're seeing in the establishment, and they are looking for other solutions. We believe we have the actual solution to the problems that ail us. So let's go about solving these problems together. All right, folks, I'll see you then. And until tomorrow, you got 24 hours, man.
No. They have 23 hours.
You have 23 hours, man, to check your premises. That's true. All right. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.